Hello and welcome everyone, live from the Media Center, room M111 here at Southside High School. I am joined by a very special guest on this very special edition of Southside Archer Minutes, the Veterans Day special. Miss Susan Thomas.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me today in the studio.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so you are the expert on this, and I admit my ignorance on this. It's the first time I've done this. But I understand that you're kind of famous for telling Veterans Day stories. Tell us about that process.
Well, several years ago, I was trying to remember how many, but I'm thinking at least 15 years ago, because I've been here a very long time. I was trying to think of something that I could do to be really meaningful for my students. And I have a very large number of people in my family that served in the military. So I started out telling their stories, and my whole point was that my family's not unique or different. Talk to people in your family. I bet you have people in your family that have served in the military as well, and I have so many students come back and tell me that they started asking questions and they started thinking about this because of what I said in class.
It's amazing. It's just inspiring how you can touch someone by just a small comment.
Yes.
So tell me, when did you start doing this very unique project?
Probably about 15 years ago or so, but if anybody's watching this that saw it back then, they probably wouldn't recognize it because it started small and it kept growing. And from the very beginning, there would be I'd get applause at the end of it, and teachers don't get that. I don't get Civil War test. Whoa! I don't get that.
That does not happen to me very often.
No. So when I'm getting applause, that made me feel better. And I'd run into people at Kroger. I'd run into them at the mall. I ran into people saying, "I still remember your stories from all those years ago." So it just kind of kept going to something that I really started looking forward to. Very cool.
Now, see, I noticed something in your hand here our viewers cannot see, but in just a moment, I think we're going to go ahead and zoom in, and we're going to see some amazing artifacts that you brought with you. Now, I understand if you actually stay tuned to our show, the next couple of days we're going to have yet another special edition. We're going to actually have some camera people up in Miss Thomas's room. But so this is kind of like a preview of what to expect. All right, so Elizabeth, if we could get some shots of this. Miss Thomas, what are we looking at here?
Okay. I've got more, but I'm going to start with here for today because that handsome man in the middle is my Grandpa Durst, my dad's dad. He was a Marine around at the turn of the last century. And while it is true he never saw any actual fighting while he was a Marine, 3 of his kids did in World War II, but his comment, I'm told, he had passed before I have a memory, his comment was always, none of his kids were a Marine. They were in the Army. So
how dare they?
Right, right. This means a lot to me. This is my Aunt Alma. She was the 5th woman in the city of Fort Wayne to enlist after World War II began.
Oh my goodness.
And she rose up through the ranks higher than she should have. She was a high school dropout because in the Depression a lot of kids had to drop out. She did laundry for some of the wealthy families and took care of wealthy families to help the family going. So even though she didn't have a high school diploma, they broke the rules and let her go to officers training school because she impressed them with how smart she was.
It's remarkable for any person, but for a woman back then, it was unheard of.
Yes, you are very right. Absolutely unheard of. So that's my short story on Aunt Alma, but watch the full version. I have a lot more to say about her, and a little spoiler alert, I talk about Winston Churchill. So that's kind of a biggie. This is my all-time favorite veteran. Can anybody tell? That's my daddy. We look quite a bit alike. He served in World War II in Korea. And I really, truly think I'm a social studies teacher because of him. I'm sure he read books to me growing up because that's what parents do. But he told me his war stories. And they were fascinating. And he'd tell me, and it made me want to learn more. And I tell the stories when I do the full version, but I won't for the shorter version. But I remember as I got older, he served in World War II and Korea. During World War II in a battle, the top people above him were all killed. So he got a field promotion and suddenly was in charge. And he got called back to Korea. When he went to World War II, he left my mom behind. When he left for Korea, he left my mom and 2 brothers behind. So it was a difficult time for my parents, but he came through and was not injured in either war, and
that's remarkable.
Finished as a 1st lieutenant. So yes.
Luck or fate, we don't really know.
Yeah, well, this is the family story, and I'll get to Phil in a little bit, but my cousin Phil, who served in Vietnam, earned 3 Purple Hearts. He went to Northside. My dad went to Central and never got hurt. So we can make some, based on where they got their education.
We'll forgive him for going
We can make some assumptions there. One of my stories that I tell has to do with when my dad was in Korea, and he found a North Korean woman there right along the South Korean border, and gave her a ride home because he didn't think she was safe. Well, he wasn't safe. He was traveled in North Korea. He would have been killed on sight. He got her back to her home, and she gave him this doll. And the belief of this doll is that it gave him another life.
Wow.
And so when he was to die, the head was supposed to fall off, and of course it didn't. But yes, because she was grateful to him for that ride.
So did she know that he was risking his life to go across the border?
Oh, absolutely, because he was an American.
Yeah.
And she could have been a spy.
Yeah.
She could have been.
And she was in danger too.
Yeah. So there was all sorts of lives in danger there. But that's one of my Korean War stories that I tell. It's actually kind of like a bobblehead. The card doesn't really. That's just to show the size. And if you lift it up, there's like I call it a thick toothpick.
Yeah.
It's like a wooden bobblehead, and that was supposed to fall off. So yes, and again, shortened version. Watch the long version, and I'll tell you.
That's remarkable. I have just one more question. Where does that reside now? Do you have it?
I do not. My nephew Jacob has it. He lives out in Baltimore. So, but yes, he has it. That was when Mom passed. Dad passed first. Then when Mom passed, and that was one thing he said he wanted.
Yeah.
So he's got that. Yeah. I've got a lot of the stuff. There's a lot that I have for Veterans Day, and I also have a huge bag of things I bring in for World War II that I got, some ration booklets and things like that.
Cool.
So yes, Jacob has that. After I tell some humorous stories from my dad and stories like this, I like to immediately change. This is my Uncle Verlin. This is my mom's brother, and he was killed in the Battle of the Bulge, which you may have heard of in World War II. He graduated from Purdue University, ROTC. 6 months later, he was killed. Even when my mother got older, even when my mother's memory wasn't as sharp as when it was younger, she could tell you minute by minute detail of the day that they came to the farm to tell them that he had been killed.
Yeah.
So that was, that shows that it's not all fun and games and laughter. It's a very real, war does terrible things. And along with that, this is Uncle Verlin's Purple Heart. He was given posthumously when he was killed in World War II. The story I was told was that Grandma and Grandpa never took it out of the box. And since they haven't, the story is they never did, I never will. But I keep this in a safe box, and I pull it out for Veterans Day, and it goes right back in. So it's definitely a treasured activity. We've been talking about Mr. Holmes a lot here these last few days. Mr. Holmes got a Purple Heart in Vietnam. They are 100% identical. They have not changed the design as time has gone on. So yes, that is Uncle Verlin's. My cousin Phil is Vietnam. This is him in this picture. And I say this to his face, so I'm going to say it right now, and I hope he watches this on YouTube. Phil is stubborn, hard-headed, opinionated, grumpy, you name it. All those things are true. But having said all those things, I have him so high on a pedestal that I would have to go onto a top of a building and climb up on a ladder to look him in the eye. He earned 3 Purple Hearts in Vietnam. He only accepted 2. And the one he didn't accept was the first one because he didn't think he was hurt bad enough. And after the second time he was so seriously hurt, he was given the option to finish out his tour here in the United States. And he turned it down and went back. Now, we see it all the time. People talk tough, talk hard. I'll do that. You couldn't make me do that. It's easy to talk. He really did it.
Yeah, he walked the walk.
He did.
Yeah.
And when he went back that third time, he almost was killed. And he's older than me. Let's point that out. But he has lifelong health issues because of that third injury, and he didn't have to be there.
Yeah.
And he was. So yes, much respect for Cousin Phil. This is him in front of his men. Another picture of him. Now, at one time, that was it. I had started with Benjamin Lawhead, which I didn't start with here, from the American Revolution, and gone all the way through to Cousin Phil, and I had got the claps, and I thought everything was done. And then I showed, I don't know if you can get this on here, this is a POW MIA bracelet from Vietnam. And it's used to be able, you could read it, but it's gotten so old. It says Captain Dennis Eilers, 12/24/65. And I got this POW bracelet kind of in an amusing way. Again, this is my spoiler alert to watch the next time. But I got this with my dad's permission, believe it or not, and I wore it, and he never came home. Captain Dennis Eilers was a prisoner of war that did not come home. Well, one year I had a student who said, this is when all this was new technology. He said, well, did you look him up on the Vietnam Memorial Wall online? And I went, the who, what, huh? What are you talking about? And with a few clicks on my computer that took up my whole desk, we pulled it up, and there was his name, what it is on the wall.
Yeah.
And there was a picture of him, and my students are like, click the picture, click the picture. And I was like, and I finally clicked it, and for the first time since I was a child, I was looking at Captain Dennis Eilers.
Yeah.
And that was just absolutely amazing to me. I found out he was a captain. He was from Iowa, a captain that flew planes. He was from Iowa, shot down over Laos. Just absolutely amazing story. There was a place you could put down a response, and I did. I said, I just want the family of Captain Dennis Eilers to know a little girl in Indiana wore your POW bracelet. I still have it, and I won't give it to anyone but family. Believe it or not, I heard back from the family.
That's remarkable.
Yes, and his mom, when what I wrote was read to her, she started crying.
Yeah. And
she said she didn't want the bracelet. She wanted me to keep it. And I thought to myself, well, if she gets emotional by that, let me finish. And I went on and told how I talk about them every Veterans Day, and his memory lives on.
And I think it's cool, too, that you were able to explore that process with your students.
Yes. Yes.
Very neat.
Yes. And so I actually got pictures of the Eiler family when they visited the wall. And a student, speaking of students, one year a student sent away for me and got an etching of his name on the actual wall, which was really, really cool. And the end of the story is from a student, because they know technology better, they finally found him. He was shot down, like I said, and his remains were missing for a very long time, but they finally found some remains, and he's at Arlington Cemetery now.
Where he belongs.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a very short summary, trying to get people more interested, but that's what I do on Veterans Day, and it matters. Like I said, kids come back and tell me they remember it, and or they talk to their grandpa and found out their cool stories, and it just became a tradition.
Well, I think with this generation, so many kids don't fully understand what other generations have gone through. So personally, I can tell you thank you for keeping it alive, even for someone, even for someone my age that might not fully understand it. And I just think it's amazing you can pass on that gift.
Yes, plan on doing it as long as I'm here. As long as people listen to me.
Indeed, indeed. Hopefully a lot longer.
Yeah, hope so.
God willing.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to add today before we wrap up and do the big presentation tomorrow?
I think that's it for the short summary, but yes, on Thursday when we do the full presentation, you'll hear all the stories of my dad.
I think this is part of our trilogy. I'm going to call it the trilogy.
Yes.
One of 3 things we'll be going over.
Yes, the meal of duck. That's another story that kids always remember. I remember when your dad ate that duck meal and things like that. So, I love doing this.
All right, Miss Susan Thomas, it's been an absolute pleasure today. Thank you all so much. I'd like to thank Jackson Schrader, directing first time today, Elizabeth and Jameson on our camera work.
They did a great job.
Thank you guys all so much. Have a great day.
Yes. Thank you. All right.